On the heels of the civil rights movement, it was initially unclear how the United States Supreme Court would handle gender-based classifications under the Equal Protection Clause. Enter Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Then an attorney for the American Civil Liberties Union, Ginsburg helped win the case that would give the court its modern approach to gender-based classifications. What was at the center of this landmark case? Beer. An Oklahoma statute permitted the sale of beer with an alcohol content of 3.2% to 18-year-old women. But the same beer couldn't be purchased by men like Curtis Craig, who was over 18 but younger than 21. If you were a man in Oklahoma, you had to wait until you turned 21. Along with a beer vendor, Craig challenged the beer statute. Craig argued that the law's unequal treatment of male and female beer drinkers was a gender-based classification in violation of the Equal Protection Clause. The district court upheld the statute, and Craig appealed directly to the United States Supreme Court. The issue before the court was whether a statute that permits the sale of alcohol to women of a certain age, but not to men of the same age, violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. In an opinion authored by Justice Brennan, the court held that the statute's gender-based classification violated the Equal Protection Clause. Prior to this case, the court generally used one of two standards of review in equal protection cases: rational basis, a deferential standard, or strict scrutiny, a highly demanding standard. In Craig's case, the court held that gender-based classifications must be evaluated by a standard of review that is in between rational basis and strict scrutiny. This test is called intermediate scrutiny. To satisfy this new standard, the law must be substantially related to furthering an important governmental objective. Oklahoma argued that the important governmental objective was to promote traffic safety. In support, the state provided statistics to show that the law furthered this objective. The statistics showed that men between the ages of 18 and 20 were more likely than women of the same age to drink and drive, be arrested for drunk driving, and be killed in car accidents. The court recognized that promoting traffic safety was an important governmental interest. However, the statistics were inadequate to support the state's claim that the gender-based classification was substantially related to furthering that interest. The court noted that 2% of men and 0.18% of women in the relevant age group were arrested for driving violations involving alcohol. According to the court, this difference wasn't large enough to justify a categorical classification based on gender. Further, the state didn't present any statistics focusing on the dangers presented by 3.2% beer as opposed to other types of alcohol, further weakening the connection between the statute and the state's interest. The court reversed the judgment of the district court and struck down the law as unconstitutional. Justice Powell wrote a concurring opinion to argue that the correct standard of review for gender-based classifications should be strict scrutiny rather than intermediate scrutiny. Applying strict scrutiny, Powell concluded that the statute wasn't narrowly tailored to the state's interest in promoting traffic safety. Justice Berger wrote a dissenting opinion, arguing that because gender-based classifications aren't specifically prohibited by the Constitution, the standard of review should be rational basis. Under this more deferential standard, Justice Berger would have upheld the Oklahoma statute. He reasoned that there was a rational relation between the state's interest in promoting traffic safety and the challenged classification because men in the relevant age bracket were more likely to drink and drive. Justice Berger accused the majority of striking down the statute simply because the majority found it unwise. Justice Rehnquist also dissented, stating that the rational basis standard is the proper standard of scrutiny for gender-based classifications. Justice Rehnquist explained that nothing in the court's previous cases, or the text of the Equal Protection Clause, or anywhere else in the Constitution supported the application of an intermediate standard of review for gender-based classifications. Craig v. Boren meaningfully altered Equal Protection Clause jurisprudence by introducing a third, intermediate standard of review for quasi-suspect classifications, such as gender. The court later expanded intermediate scrutiny to laws involving illegitimate children.